Car launch season is officially upon us. We are at Red Bull's event here in New York City. This is Unlapped, and as you can tell, we have a very, very special guest, Daniel Ricciardo, joining Katie George, Lawrence Edmondson, and Nate Saunders here. Thank you so much. What's today been like for you with this Red Bull launch, the first ever season launch in the States?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been pretty great. This is like day one of work for the year, so just having fun with it. I'm transitioning from holiday mode to kind of work mode, so forgive me if I'm still a little delirious, but no, it's pretty cool. Like to have this season launch here in New York, and just to see the sport, how it's blown up here the last few years. It's wild, and even like honestly, I get recognized probably in New York as much as any other place, which is ridiculous to me. So I see it firsthand, and yeah, like Red Bull's fully pushing now, and it's cool.
Do you enjoy getting recognized, or is it getting to the point where it needs to be managed?
I invested in a taser. No, it's pretty cool. Like everyone here is pretty awesome. It's like they're friendly, like, and that's it's very much like Australia. Like they might yell out my name and run across the street and be like, "Oh, I just started watching," or like they'll say something nice and complimentary. So I'm like, "All right, you're cool, Knuckles," and then peace.
But you have to keep doing that over and over again. Like, I always think, doesn't it get repetitive after a while? But I guess it's not the worst thing to get repetitive.
Yeah. I was like, as long as like everyone's nice, like you can't. That doesn't get boring or old, you know. Like it's, I think, and then like obviously you go like, as long as there's like respect, is if you're like about to like have a mouthful of food and they're like grabbing you and like pulling you away and having a photo, then it's like, all right, maybe wait a couple minutes. But no, everyone's been like really nice and respectful, and as I said, just complimentary, so not many give me a hard time. So
yeah, people still ask for autographs. Is it all selfies nowadays? Like the autograph seems to have slowed down.
Yeah, because my autograph book used to be my most treasured possession when I was a kid. Now no one does it.
I want to get into autographs. Let's get into autographs. I don't get it. Like I want to know who started autographs.
Terrible. Who
was the guy that said, "I'm going to sign this for you, and this is now our way of interaction"?
It's a lot of trust as well, because you're like, this is definitely his.
Yeah.
Like a selfie at least is like this. You can see it.
There's proof.
Yeah. Whereas an autograph, it's like, no, this definitely is him.
An old napkin with a scribble on it. You're like, yeah, this was LeBron James. It's like, wait, I don't think it was.
But I've also seen the piles of merchandise you guys have to sign at race weekends, and it's almost like, right, you'll have 2 hours engineering and an hour of signing stuff. That must drag on a bit. And
the signing's real, and there's a lot. So yeah. The photos are cool. I guess the photos are there's a bit more interaction, where like an autograph is sometimes just like kind of thrown at you and sign this and then they pull it back, where a photograph, there's normally like a, hey, how are you and where are you from or something. So a little bit more of a
Then they're in your bubble as well.
Then they're in your face. They're right up in there.
Which is either a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, depends.
Definitely depends. Do you like
I just had chewing gum, so I'm okay.
Well, I'll be the judge. Do you like your signature? A lot of people hate their signatures.
I don't love it. Nah.
Well,
I don't love it.
We see it every time when we go to Budapest. It's on in the gantry when you walk in. You've signed your name, haven't you? It's like a DR and a 3, right? So I feel like I've seen it. You signed the book as well that I wrote. You remember that?
Yes.
Here we go. It didn't take long for this to come up, did it? The book.
So I like the D. I like the way I do my D. The rest is like, the 3, but that's pretty easy to do. But yeah.
But if you're doing it over and over again, that's the easiest one to do, I guess.
Then you start, like, there's a quick way of doing it as well. I think that's as well, like with autographs, it can change a bit.
Sure.
But I guess with a photo as well, you can have a good hair day, a bad hair day. It's not always the same, is it?
No, it's not. What's
These
it feel
are
like?
real matters, aren't they?
They are. I know, this is the hard-hitting stuff that we wanted to... Well, this is what it's about on Unlapped, obviously. What's it like being back?
Back like Red Bull, or just back in just away from a holiday?
We're going to get Red Bull back.
It's nice. It's been really good. Here we go.
Is Christian Horner going to join the podcast?
To our latest young driver. Good to have you back.
Thanks, mate.
All right, see you soon.
Cheers. Thank you.
There you go. So it is really nice to be back. And
Did you plan that right on cue?
no, but I feel you planned it.
Maybe.
You asked the question.
We'll see.
That was really, there's something about it where, yeah, I don't know. It just felt, as soon as we both were like, let's do this, it was like, oh yeah, kind of a light bulb. That's how, like, what I've been using today is like a light bulb moment where it just made complete sense, and it happened really quickly. And then, like, going back to the factory the first time, I was like, oh, like, it's growing a lot. But then I was also like, this is very familiar. So, and just the amount of personal text messages I had from like engineers or mechanics that, I was working with at the time I was there, it was like really, really cool.
Yeah. First time you put the actual kit on itself, was there a bit of a like, oh, this is strange? Like, because, it is like when you have school uniform or whatever, you get used to like a way it looks, and suddenly you're like, this is weird. This is what I was doing 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange, but actually probably more so. Like, it was more strange, like putting on a Renault one or putting on a McLaren one, because I'd had Red Bull colors for the most of my professional career, pretty much all of it actually. So kind of slipping back into these colors felt more familiar than anything else. Yeah.
Nice.
And I felt young again.
Well, I mean, you look like the youngest, certainly out of me and Lauren. So I'm not gonna say the same about Katie.
Yeah, don't put me in there.
Well, I was just going to follow that up. I mean, in terms of the decision this year to come back and do this role, how important was it that it was Red Bull and you had that familiarity? Did that kind of play kind of a key? I'm not saying it was the only reason, but it must have helped that decision, coming back here.
It did because I think once I'd come to terms with not racing, and once I was like comfortable in myself, and because of course at first it was like a bit of a fear, like, oh my gosh, I'm like, can I not race? Like, what does that mean? Like, is this the career over? And once I'd realized that's what I needed and wanted, then the Red Bull thing kind of made the most sense and very clear, because it's like, all right, actually this is what I need at the moment. Yes, they've had amazing success and they're also a great team to be with, but just for me to kind of get back into an environment which I personally had success in, but also built a lot of relationships with, like, that's probably like the little bit of confidence, boost I need as well. And even saying that, I'm like, I don't feel my confidence is down, but it's, of course I had a challenging year or two, so I don't want to be naive and be like, yeah, I don't need to be challenging myself again with a new environment. I think having the ability to step back into this one was like, yeah, the best thing. And very happy about that.
How
I get free Red Bull again, so my fridge hasn't been stocked for a while.
That's a winner. How keen are you to get into...
It's the little things, Katie.
How can you get into a Red Bull car? Because we know when you were last in Red Bull cars and the way they handled and the way they performed, you were mega. And then you've obviously had struggles adapting to the McLaren. So getting back in a Red Bull, will that be the proof of like, I still got it, like I can still do this? And will that motivate you to potentially...
I think so.
Get back into a race.
I think so. Like if a lot of those feelings come back, and if ultimately if the stopwatch is there, and my reference for now will be a simulator, but if I do start to feel like comfortable on the sim, and then I think it'll like fuel that fire. But yeah, I'm like going to take my time with it. I don't want to kind of jump to a decision early in the season, like, oh yeah, like this is where I want to be for 24. I just want to let it happen. And but yeah, I expect to feel comfortable in this car, but it has changed, so I don't want to think it's exactly the 2018 car I drove, but I'm sure there'll be some things about it which I'm like, oh yeah, this is now doing what I like.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.